Does everybody have 2 o'clock on their phones? Okay. We have a lot of material. We have a lot of material that we want to share, so let's go ahead and get started. So you guys signed up for the flash mob, right? Okay, I'm thinking like an 80s song maybe? Thriller, Michael Jackson, something? No? Okay, let's do project management instead. And let's talk about some governance. So we're going to talk about, actually we still have a couple more people coming in. And can everyone hear me in the back? No. Can you hear me now? Getting better? I'll stand closer and I won't move around. How's that? Still better? All right. There we go. Right up in front of me. Okay. So we are here today and we're talking about three different topics. We're going to talk about governance, we're going to talk about leveraging project resources, and we're going to talk about team building. My name is Marie McIntyre. I work for Xerox and I'm working on the Camus project. I'm the EPMO Deputy Director there. And with me today are my trusty sidekicks, Jenny Clark and Paul Abrams. And they'll come up after me and hopefully entertain you more than I will. So does everybody here know what an EPMO is? Okay. Camus, because we're going to spend some time talking about Camus. Camus is the California Medicaid Management Information System. And that project involved a takeover from the legacy vendor and then an assumption of operations, running the operations, and then what's still ahead of us is system replacement. So lots of money invested, lots of time invested, lots of different vendor partnerships, and a long road ahead of us in terms of getting to system replacement. It's similar to some of our other large projects here in California where we have legacy systems that are literally decades old that are being replaced. So we've all experienced that where the program you're working on is 30, 40 years old, right? Okay. So a little bit more about my background. As I was trying to think of a way to introduce myself to you, I thought, what would make me qualified to stand up before you guys and talk about tips for project success, right? Because it's not that I've only worked on projects that have been successful or that have come in on time and on budget. I only say that that's true, but it's not. So I've spent about 15 years working in child support. So I worked for San Francisco County as a child support case investigator there, and then I spent a little more than a decade with one of the legacy vendors on the CSAS project. I was working for San Francisco when SACS was visited upon us, if anybody remembers that one. So that was fun. Then most recently, in the last couple of years, I've been working on the Camus project in the EPMO there. So tell me a little bit about you. Who here today is from finance? Maybe by show of hands. Nobody. Okay. Department of General Services? Thank you. SCO? Managed healthcare? All right, people have signed up that didn't come, and I think I have people that have come that didn't sign up. All right. How about DMV? Okay. Franchise Tax Board? OSI? Okay. Secretary of State? CDCR? More people that showed up and didn't come, or signed up and didn't come. EDD? And DHCS? Nobody here from Camus except my trusty colleagues here? All right. Lottery? Okay. And then Public Health? Department of Technology? And Department of Veteran Affairs? Anybody whose name I didn't call or whose organization I didn't call? Which ones? Let's shout out. Social Services? Fiscal. One more? Uh-huh. Anybody else? CalSTRS. I see one last hand over there. Managed healthcare. Okay. So it seems like people have done some switching around. So hopefully you're here because you wanted to be here. Okay. We're going to talk about three main topics I mentioned. The first one up is governance, and had a nice segue from our keynote speaker at lunch, so that was good. So remember Holly this morning, and she had those little bubble cards? And she talked about assumptions and challenging her assumptions. If I had bubble cards, if I had Holly's props, I'd be holding up that bubble card now. And I would say that some of the things that I think or I hear about governance are that it is just another status meeting. Or that it's not a decision that I can influence or that I can impact, or that decision is above my pay grade. What folks were telling you during the keynote speeches, and what I'm telling you is that we can all influence that. There's a gentleman that I really respect from our IV&B partnership who talked to me about this superhero complex. And he said, project managers all think they're superheroes. And I thought, oh, goody, I have always wanted a cape and my own invisible jet, right? So what he said to me after I talked about my cape for a while was that project managers think they're superheroes, and they will think that they have it under control every day or that they can get it back under control. They will never admit when they need help. Governance is there to help you, and if you use it, it can help you. So I think you should embrace it. It's kind of like eating Brussels sprouts. It's good for you, and you should do it. So governance, according to the Project Management Institution, is a implementation that is a unique endeavor which has to be properly understood. It has to properly be planned for in order to be accepted by the entire performing organization. So we can set up a very fancy governance program, but if we don't have buy-in, it will not serve our purposes. So some of the objectives that we focus on for governance at the Camus project is to make decisions and take action at the lowest possible level within your bounds of authority, to establish a consistent model for escalation of issues and risks and change requests so that every project knows exactly where to go to get help or where to go to get decision, and they're all doing that in a similar and consistent manner. We use that to identify cross-project touch points because it's not that common where we have one single project and everyone's focused on it. More often than not, we have a couple of different projects, people are competing for resources, they're competing for test environments. We use our governance to identify where projects might be about to collide and to try to avoid those collisions. And we utilize peer-based groups to achieve these objectives. So I'm not going to put a business analyst in a room with the CEO and expect that's going to be a fair and balanced conversation, right? So we try to keep things peer-based. As you're setting up a governance model, you need to think about your decision model. And it's usually best to think about the decision model before you have to have your first governance decision. Otherwise, you'll get some strong personalities that will take over, and they may or may not take over in the way that you want your decisions to be made. So Project Management Institute indicates that designing a model with a strong understanding of your culture, your hierarchy, your politics, your relationships, your vendors, your partners, and all of your alliances. Think about Survivor and the way they make decisions on that reality show, right? You have to have a strong decision model in order to allow your stakeholders to make decisions without beating each other up. So some common decision models that I've seen on projects that I've worked on are a voting model, very straightforward. You have to figure out who are the members that are required to vote and allowed to vote, and then what's that threshold? Is it a majority plus one? Is it 70%? Some kind of threshold that tells you what would be an acceptable vote. Another common one is consensus. That's the one that we use at Camus the most. And that involves basically having your discussion about whatever issue has been escalated through governance and testing for consensus, talking through your objection points and finding out if you have reached an agreement point or if people are going to stand aside or if you truly are at an impasse. And if you're at an impasse, you would escalate it up to the next decision model there. Any other decision models that you guys use in your projects or your governance programs that you'd be willing to share? No? Okay, well, we'll go with these two for now. All right, so I'm going to talk for a little bit about this diagram. This is the Camus governance diagram, and we'll hit another couple of diagrams in a few minutes. This diagram represents a top to bottom approach and both a bottom to top approach. Make sure you guys can still hear me as I play with the pointer here. So at the bottom of our diagram here, we have our projects and our operations, and then we have a work group level. So we have integration and change control work groups, and those, when they need some decision making, will escalate up to our first layer of decision making, which is the Senior Project Management Committee and the Change Control Board. We do have those as two unique bodies. And then our second level of decision making is this layer here. You'll see that everything meets in the middle at our Camus Enterprise Oversight Committee. And then if we are really in trouble and we have to escalate further, that would go up to our Executive Leadership Council. You can see two offshoots here. We have a contract issue resolution team, CERT. So when we have significant disagreements about the scope of the contract or the language of the contract, we would refer out to our contract issue resolution team, which is jointly held by our state counterpart and our vendor. And then we have our Camus advisory group, which is our once monthly external stakeholder meeting. EPMO, the group that Jenny and Paul and I work for, EPMO is the wrapper around all of these work groups and projects and provides the administration and support for governance and makes sure that everything is properly tracked. It's recorded in our project-wide repository. It's easily available. EPMO performs all of those functions within the governance organization. Another important thing when you're setting up a governance program, or maybe something to revisit if you haven't looked at your program for a while, is what is the frequency of your cycle? As projects start out, maybe you don't need to meet every week, maybe you need to meet every month or a couple of times a month, but take a look at what your need basis is for meeting on a governance program, and then set the pace of your decision making according to that. At Camus, we have set this up deliberately for a weekly flow, and so if I'm a project and I need some assistance or a decision that I can't make at my authority level because I don't have the budget authority to do that, for example, I can raise that up through governance, and I can hit my work group level, my integration work group, or my change control work group on a Tuesday. If that group can't help me solve my problem, I can escalate it to the first decision-making body, which is our Senior Project Management Committee or our Change Control Board, and they meet every Thursday, so I've got a very rapid escalation process there. And then finally on Friday, if I'm still seeking help, I can get that into our Enterprise Oversight Committee on Friday for some executive level decision-making. So this group here, they meet Tuesdays, they meet Thursdays, they meet Fridays. Different groups meet different days of the week, and they're dealing with anything that's been escalated, whether it's a project issue, a project risk, or a project change request. And I can get my question asked and answered within a week. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of these work groups, but before I do, I want to talk to you about the exercise that we're going to do when I am done talking to you. And so every table has a role to play when we get to our governance exercise. And so as I talk about these work groups, I want you to think about which table you're sitting at. So table 1, you guys, you're going to be the vendor risk owner when we talk about our risk in a little while. Table 2, you guys are going to be the state risk owner and the author of the risk that we're going to work through. Table 3, you're going to be the integration work group that we're going to talk about in just a moment. Table 4, you're going to be the Senior Project Management Committee. And Table 5, way in the back, you're going to be the Enterprise Oversight Committee. Anybody need me to repeat that? Yes. Okay, so Table 1, vendor risk owner. Table 2, state risk owner. Table 3, integration work group. Table 4, Senior Project Management Committee. And Table 5, Enterprise Oversight Committee. There's going to be a risk in your packets, and I'll tell you where it is in a couple of minutes. But as we talk about these work groups, if you're Table 3, for example, and you're the integration work group, you're going to want to pay attention to this slide. All right, so back to our diagram here. The integration work group, if you want to pull up your hard copy, that might be easier. Our slide gets a little small here. The integration work group is the first stop for project escalated issues or risks. And this group focuses on the cross-project analysis of our issues, our risks, our status, and our schedule. This group will dispose of those escalations if they can, if it's within their authority, or they'll do the staff work to make sure that the escalation item is well documented, well understood, and can be easily decided upon by the next governing body. This group tries to perform problem solving when they can, and a lot of enterprise communication. So if I am a project that is about to collide with another project from a test environment, this is the group that I'm going to go to try to negotiate some sort of arena in which both projects can get through that testing environment in a compatible fashion without impacting anybody else's schedule. Or if I need to share some resources from our quality management organization from one project to another, for example, I might go to the integration work group to see if I can't make a trade of those resources. Our change control work group focuses primarily on change requests and does the analysis and prioritization of all of the change requests that are going to be escalated. This group also does work on some issues and risks for our operations side of the house, but we're not going to focus on that too much today. So this group does the staff support to consolidate and prioritize and make a recommendation for every change request that comes through, so that when it actually gets to the change control board, there's a nice neat package that says change control work group recommends that these 5 be approved, for example, but these other 2 need more work or they need to be denied because they're not within our scope. The Senior Project Management Committee is the first stop for official decision level making for our projects. And so while the integration work group can try to negotiate solutions, the buck starts stopping at the Senior Project Management Committee. And so this group is charged with actually disposing of project-specific issues and risks or escalating them up if they can't. This group also is where we have a very intense focus on newly created issues and risks, and so we try to place some emphasis on the management that is attending that group to make sure that all of the new risks and issues that have been created by the project have been looked at by the management team. We also utilize our and leverage our stakeholders there. So we invite our IVNB partners and our IPOC partners into that meeting so that there's some transparency there or increased transparency there. And we ask that IVNB share their preliminary findings. So IVNB, if you're lucky enough to have them on your project, they usually have some sort of monthly obligation to write up the IVNB report. Our IVNB has graciously agreed to come to our senior project management committees and share their preliminary findings. Sometimes there are things we need to respond to. Sometimes there's opportunities for us to share more information back to IVNB, but it gives us a chance to understand what IVNB is observing in a management committee that is staffed by both our vendor and our state partners. Our change control board is, again, much like the SPMC or the Senior Project Management Committee. Our change control board is the first level of decision making for change requests. And so once they have reviewed all of that staff work that the CCW has provided, hopefully their job is fairly easy in terms of approving or denying change requests. And then our Camus Enterprise Oversight Committee. This is where projects and operations and change control all meet in the middle. This is the second level of decision making for our escalated items. And this is structured as a direct interaction between our executive level on both our state and our vendors. This group provides the strategic direction for the projects within our program, and this is the only group that can refer items out to the CERT team, that contract issue resolution team. So that means that if I decide I have a contract issue, I can't go engage those expensive lawyer types just because I think it's a contract issue. I need to make sure that I have vetted that with my executives before I call in the big guns. And then finally, if we have to, we have our Executive Leadership Council. Now, they meet, of course, for other business reasons, but from an escalation perspective, this would be the final stop for an escalation. So something that escalated from the project level would have to be pretty big to get all the way up to ELC. An example of what we might escalate there would be an actual request to change a baseline project implementation date or go-live date. This provides the strategic direction for our program overall and is the coordination point for our communication with our external stakeholders. Let's take a look at some other governance diagrams. So this is the lottery portfolio governance diagram. And similar to the last diagram I showed you, you'll see an escalation path that goes up. It's hard to read, but it is in your packet. And then a decision path and a prioritization path that comes back down. So some of the interesting things that I saw in the lottery portfolio write-up are that they're trying to avoid propagating redundant committees because nobody wants to go to any more meetings that they have to, right? So make sure that your committees are not redundant with each other, that decisions are made at the most appropriate level, and then that oh, I've lost my space here. I apologize. There's one more third important thing, and I wanted to tell you about him. They use escalation for prioritization of competing demands. And so I mentioned, for example, in our integration work group, if we have competing demands for a test environment, we would work that starting at the integration work group. This group also focuses on competing demands and then doing what's best for the project here. So a very different picture but the goals are very similar, which is interesting when you're looking at different governance diagrams across our projects here. I'm going to pull up a couple of different ones now that I need a little bit more space. So we're going to look at Fiscal's data governance structure and then the Child Support Services IT governance process flow. Give me 1 second. All right. Okay, so this is the Fiscal data governance structure, and one of the really interesting things when I think about if I'm trying to design a governance model, the interesting things about Fiscal is not just the size or the age of the legacy systems that are being replaced, but the makeup and the components of the community that make up that governance. So you have 4 unique partner agencies plus the vendors and the vendors' partners. That's a lot of opinions, right? To try to get through a decision, you've got a lot of different opinions, a lot of masters to serve when there are 4 partner agencies and the vendor all trying to get work done. This data governance board also uses a couple of different decision models. So not just one, like at Camus, we generally use a consensus-based decision model. Fiscal's data governance uses a couple of different decision models, bottoms up and top down. And so those are defined by the project activities. Certain project activities can use one model and certain project activities can use another. And that's all defined so that you know what your model will be for the type of decision that needs to be made. Looking at the child support model, this is primarily focused around change control, and one of the things that really interests me about the child support model is that the issues and risks are all embedded in the analysis and design package. So where Camus, we have change requests are a separate animal from issues, which are a separate animal from risks. In the change control model here, issues, risks, and change requests are all in one analysis and design package and have to be documented that way. The other thing here that is of interest to me is that the change control board represents not just the Department of Child Support and the vendor there. It has to represent the 58 California counties, the local child support agencies, and so they are represented by 2 representatives basically. So 58 counties represented by 1 small county and 1 large county. So if you think about how to represent large and small and medium-sized counties by 2 across 58, the fact that that group has been able to make that work for them is pretty impressive. All right. I will find my presentation again, I promise. There we go. I ended it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do our governance exercise now, and I'm going to, oh, did you have a question?
Yeah,
yes, sure.
A question on the Camus governance.
Mm-hmm.
What type of participants are in each of those different groups? Are they senior managers? Are they executive? ELC is obviously executive.
That's a great question. Let me go back there for you. We'll go to the big diagram. So here at the integration work group, we have generally a wide group of project managers. So we have 2 projects at the moment. A couple of months ago, we had 4 active projects that were represented there by the project managers for both sides. So client project manager and vendor project manager. And then we have our quality management organization is represented there. EPMO is represented there. What we call CPMO, which is our Camus or our client project management office is represented there. Our test team participates in that group. IV&V and IPOC. Depends on which project is in which stage. So if the project is actively testing, we're generally going to get the test manager in there, but that can shift. Did I skip anyone? We had a lot of people that are interested in the integration work group.
Just about anyone comes into status because we share status across projects, so a lot of people are interested.
And then when we have our senior project management committee here, our change control board, this is generally director level. So if I've got, 15 different project manager types at the integration work group, I have 6 different director types here at the senior project management committee. And then here at our Camus Enterprise Oversight Committee, that is our executive group. That is our top leaders in our organization. Any other questions before we move into the exercise? Oh, I'm sorry, you're not done. Sure.
That weekly cycle that you showed where there's like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday?
Uh-huh.
So is there a time when you take an issue to the integration work group and they can't resolve it? It goes to the senior project management committee, they can't resolve it. Is there a time when you can't get on the Friday agenda and you have to wait for another week?
Yes. So the question was, Paul helpfully reminded me I should repeat the question so everyone in the back can hear. The question was, are there times when I have an issue or a risk that's been escalated and I can't make the agenda of something like this, right? So am I too late in the cycle to make it in? Certainly we take exceptions. If something is burning a hole in our pocket and we know that the right decision body is SPMC or the right decision body is this group, and it has to be dealt with, we will absolutely make exceptions for that. We ask that people do some communication and send out some broadcasts to make sure that the groups below that would have needed to know or participate are aware, but we'll add that to the agenda on the fly if we have to. Yes?
So should we assume that decisions aren't being made in the Tuesday meeting? Or are you saying there are some things that people don't quite agree on and that's the need for the escalation?
So our tenet is that everybody make the decisions at the lowest possible level. Sometimes that doesn't work. People don't know that they can make decisions or they just can't come to agreement. The first place where we'll really bring them together and try to start forcing those discussions is the integration work group. And a lot of times through those discussions, we can come up with a solution or negotiate our way through some of those tough conversations. The integration work group for us in and of itself doesn't have decision-making authority. So that group can't say, yes, you can hire, another analyst if it's not in your budget, or yes, you can skip system test, it's not that important kind of thing. But a lot of times in the working level discussions where you force people into a room and talk to each other a little bit more, you can actually end up negotiating a decision. It's once we get up to the senior project management committee, that box in the middle, that we start seeing areas where there is specific budget authority. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's an excellent question. Okay, so the question was, when decisions get made in one area, how do other stakeholders get notified? Is there a centralized decision log? The answer to that for us is we have a couple of different variations on there. Paul's going to talk with us about a centralized repository in a bit. For our change requests, they are logged in a tool which we call ClearQuest. They're also logged in what we call our Change Control Board decision log, so that anybody can get to that out on SharePoint. And then we also email blast it out to anybody we think could want it, including the people that actively requested that change. So those changes are logged in a tool. They're logged in an Excel spreadsheet for those of us that are not tool savvy, and then we publish that out on email as well. We also have what we call a key decision log, which may or may not be a change request or an issue or a risk, but we do have what we call a key decision log. So if something gets decided that I think someone's going to want to know about in 6 months, but I might not be here to remind anyone, we have this key decision log, which is also in SharePoint. Any other questions? Yes.
How do you integrate new project approvals in this, or is that a separate governance?
The question was, how do we integrate new project approvals, or whether that's a separate governance? For Camus, they come in as what we call a system development notice, or SDN, or they come in as an enhancement project. And so some of those come in actually pre-approved from our client, and then some of them have to be decided on by our change control board. It kind of depends on the type of project and how big it is. That's, yeah. Anything else? Okay. We're going to do our exercise now. This is where we start getting even more interactive.